Welcome to another intriguing episode of the Show. We are two geeks who talk about everything. My name is Aaron, and I'm joined as usual by my cousin Landon.
Good day
Good
and
to have you
back.
back, man.
Yeah, but I was so cool that Nicole joined and did that. She sounds like a fun person.
He tries. I should probably edit that out. She might hear this and think that's some kind of insult. I hope not, though. I appreciated her filling in a couple weeks ago, and last week my friend Jeff filled in as well. So, um, well, you'll have to. You haven't heard that one come out yet. That'll be next
No, I
week.
haven't heard the gentleman. Yeah, no, that's great. Well, I like that. Maybe we can have some more guests come on.
It was fun. It was. I enjoyed the interview process. Um, but I'm not looking to fill any seats on the Tonight Show or anything. Today's episode is dedicated to one of the most iconic and influential science fiction series of all time, Star Trek, the original series. And we're going old school on this one. So buckle up as we approach Warp 9 and delve into the fascinating history and behind the scenes stories of this legendary show. First of all, Landon, what do you know about the beginnings of Star Trek?
I mean, I think probably not as much as you. I mean, I Gene Roddenberry and the vision of that. I feel like Star Trek, as it's gone through its different phases and interviewing different people along the way, a lot of people have done a lot of good, respectful homage to Gene Roddenberry, and so, yeah, I just know that, just very general, general stuff. And I've also had the privilege of meeting a few of the cast members through the years at different Comic Cons and stuff. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I got.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's right. I remember you didn't like recently you met Jonathan Frakes.
Yeah, Gates McFadden.
That's awesome. I'm not jealous at all. Um, but we'll get to them. We'll get to well, I'm sure at some point we will do a next generation episode because I mean, if you're like me, I love all Star Trek.
Yeah,
And so I find it fascinating. Some's better than others, obviously. They're not all going to be perfect, but gosh, the stories that they tell are just amazing.
well,
So
Chekhov was there at the place. Hey, I didn't get to do the signing autograph with him, but Chekhov was right beside the two, or one down from Gates McFadden. So he was
oh,
he
that's
was right
awesome.
there. What's his name?
Um, Chekhov, Pavel,
That's all I know
um,
his name is.
Walter Koenig.
Koenig. Yeah.
All right, so you mentioned Gene Roddenberry. So he was kind of that visionary figure in the world of science fiction. In March of 1964, he was a longtime science fiction fan, and he drafted a short treatment for a series that he called Star Trek. Now, that's a bold move because this is a time when Westerns dominated the landscape as far as cinema and television goes. So this was sort of a groundbreaking idea. Can you imagine like what it must have been like for him to go up against like studios and be like, "Hey, I've got this idea for like, think of it like Wagon Train Among the Stars."
Oh yeah, yeah. I think it would have been hard, especially because I'm thinking like back at that time. When did Flash Gordon come out? It was later.
Gosh, the are you talking about the old serials of
Yeah,
Flash Gordon?
yeah.
That was like in the 30s and 40s, I
Oh,
think.
so it's way earlier. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. So I wonder though, because that's the only thing that I can think of that was in like historical, like that was like that would be Flash Gordon, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, you really didn't have a lot of sci-fi outside of like maybe magazine
Yeah,
articles and comic books, but even those, more often than not lean toward the Western side of things just because that's just where popular culture was at the time. And
right.
so it's so crazy. When I think about Wagon Train to the Stars, thinking about Star Trek that way, I can't help but think about there's a line in Stand By Me where they're all sitting around the fire and it's just like they keep going from one conversation to another, just shooting the breeze. And at one point they go, you ever think about that show Wagon Train? They're always wagon training. They never seem to get anywhere. Star Trek is.
Like
They're
Star
always
Trek.
just going out there, just exploring, and they don't really get anywhere.
To boldly
Um,
go, you know?
just yeah, just boldly going where no man has gone before. So in the original concept, the protagonist was Captain Robert April. Bet you didn't know that. Later, that name changed to Christopher Pike, who you are familiar with. Uh, and let's see, that was in the first pilot. The show underwent some significant changes during its development. So what are your thoughts on the evolution of the show's characters and concepts from like the initial draft to the final product that finally hit the airwaves in '66?
Well, for what from watching the show, and I've seen the original series all the way through, I think twice. How many times I've seen it? And you can definitely feel this vibe with William Shatner. In our culture today, William Shatner, people talk like this, and it's very comical and funny. But at the time then, it wasn't. I mean, he was like handsome, and he was like a woman's. I mean, he was like he liked the ladies, and then seeing Spock and the dynamic. It wasn't until later that you had the kind of things where, like Scotty, like there's all these jokes as you get older with the movies about Scotty and how he was like, "I'm Captain, I have no power. Damn it, Joe, damn it, Joe, I'm a doctor, not a pool man." From like Ace Ventura. You have like all these jokes like that, but the show
Parodies.
itself back then was so. I mean, it was serious. It
Oh
was it
yeah,
was very serious show. So there's this evolution from the show to the movies, and I think when people look back, it's easy to look at it from the movie humor that came out, where it kind of was, still serious, but sometimes made fun of itself a little bit. But those episodes, and there were some really good episodes. I mean, think about like when Kurt he kissed uh, Ahura.
Uhura. Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that was like a big deal, and an
It was a
awesome
huge
big
deal.
deal.
There were networks in like or like local stations in the South that refused to air it, and even like shut off their, I guess their affiliation with NBC
Yeah,
because of it. Like it was a big deal because it
yeah,
was for those of you who don't know, that was the first time a white man had ever kissed a black woman on television, and
it's
like
a big deal.
today no one thinks anything about that, but back then and in the late '60s, this is like that probably caused some people's brains to explode.
What'd you think about Scotty? Like, because I saw the movies first, right? And Scotty always had the beard, right? So then I go back and see the old. I'm like, who's this guy? And then I heard him, and I was like, oh, that's
Yeah,
what you look like under there.
right. Yeah, he always had the mustache, right, in the movies.
Yeah, it was the
And yeah,
mustache, not the beard. It was the mustache.
and the
Man,
gray hair, and the
and the
gray
gray
hair.
hair.
So like, you go back and watch the series, and yeah, I did the same thing. Like I grew up watching the movies, and then finally when it hit streaming, whenever that was in the last decade or so, I finally had a chance to go through and watch every episode, and
Yeah.
it's like, man, I knew he looked young in the series, but dude, without the facial hair and and with like dark brown hair, it's like this is not the Scotty I grew up knowing.
Bones is the one who ended up looking like Bones. I mean, you look back and you're like, yep, that's what you
If
look like
if
older.
nothing else, he aged into his character.
He did. That's a good way of saying it.
So, Desilu Productions played a crucial role in bringing Star Trek to life. Desilu, of course, the
Yeah,
production company behind I Love
absolutely.
Lucy.
I love Lucy.
Uh, they played a crucial role in bringing the show to life. So, after several rejections, NBC took a chance on the show. They, like we mentioned before, they ordered a second pilot that was titled "No Where No Man Has Gone Before." The only character to stick around from the first pilot was Spock,
Right.
and NBC approved of the second chance. What's funny is that episode, that second pilot, actually became the third episode to air in that first season. Can you imagine how different television history would be if NBC hadn't taken a chance on Star Trek? I mean, do you think we would even have Star Wars that came out a decade later?
Well, I'm sure George Lucas would say, of course you would.
Sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's some of these shows like this one have really shaped our culture. I think of how many kids watch Star Trek that went and ended up being looking at or going to NASA or just being involved in technology. I mean, it really like set the stage for what you could do or where you would go. Everything else and like the westerns of the time, it was more like about being tough and your character and fighting the bad guys. But to look at the technology and think about what could happen, I think it sparked imagination in a way that has not that maybe everything else was kind of fun to do, but this was like, oh my gosh, like that would be legit awesome to have, you know,
Well, yeah, just think about how
an
the
iPad.
objects on the show have influenced our technology. You had the flip open communicator, and we had flip phones.
Flip phones,
On the next generation, they're on
tablets,
iPads, tablets all the time. So,
crazy.
these are obviously things that have been influenced by the things we've seen on TV and in science fiction. Now they're fact. So it's so
Yeah.
crazy to think about where we could be in 100 years.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Um,
It's crazy.
so as the show got underway, we saw the introduction of iconic characters. You had Captain James Kirk, you had Spock, Bones McCoy, Scotty, Sulu, Uhura, and Chekhov.
Yeah.
These were our, magnificent seven of the original crew. I want to ask you, which character from the original series resonates with you the most, and why would you say that?
I guess. Oh, that's a good question. I would say probably Captain Kirk. I feel like the show, but I have a hard time just isolating the show
Mhm.
without thinking of the movies and the full character.
Sure.
So I can't really do that. I really like Spock and Spock's growth and transition and all the ways that they worked with him. Even later shows having like a data, or other shows having like the computer generated um, characters, and they're always trying to shape or humanize, or show compassion and emotion, and that was really cool. But Kirk was almost like always the compass, just the compass of the right thing to do. And when he wasn't doing the right thing, he it shaped it around it. But typically, he was just the compass. You?
Go with personally, I go with Spock.
Yeah.
And that's mostly because I'm an emotionless automaton, more often than not. So no, I mean, all kidding aside, I'm a very logical person, and
Yeah.
my thinking through things, I try to be a very logical thinker, and I don't act until I know for sure what I'm wanting to happen, and I don't let emotion cloud my judgment. So,
So
yeah,
you are pretty much
I'm
a
a
Vulcan.
Vulcan. Yeah, at least I'm at
Hey,
least half Vulcan. Of
can you do it? You can do it. Yeah,
course,
sorry.
both
So
hands.
I think like Kirk would be like the moral compass, but Spock would be like the practical compass. I mean, like just the logical compass, you know, where your emotions don't get in the way of you doing what needs to be done. Right.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas Kirk, plenty of times his emotions got in the way. Kobayashi Maru.
Believe in a no-win scenario. So the show's early years on NBC were not a smooth ride. Low Nielsen ratings led to the cancellation of Star Trek after 3 seasons and only 79 episodes.
Does that
However,
blow your mind?
I know, yeah, only 79 episodes, but in syndication, the show gained a huge fan base. It became cult classic status and influenced popular culture from then until eternity. Like, there's always going to be some kind of Star Trek out there,
Yeah.
whether it's a new movie, a new TV show. That intellectual property is never going to go away.
Yeah.
So, what do you think it was about Star Trek that made it such a hit in syndication after it left NBC with such a struggle?
Um, I I think that people have been attracted or were shifting in culture towards looking to the future. and looking towards, beyond us and outside of our planet, and I think both in technology and exploration, the idea of just becoming more advanced, uh, just the advancement. I think it's been a huge shift, and people couldn't let it go. It sparked that, and then from there, people just continued to want that, and we're all striving. I think some people appreciate the utopian s type of thought process of Starfleet, that has come later. And then there's been an anti that by shows like Discovery or things like that that show this it's not so perfect, or Picard, who Picard sees, this other side of that. But to me, I think people will continue to be drawn to the idea of advancement and going out farther than us.
Yeah, I agree. Um, so my next question might be kind of the same thing. Hopefully, it's a little different. The show's cancellation in '69 did not mark the end of Star Trek, as we know. We've got um, the power of being able to look back and see everything on Paramount Plus now. So through syndication, it found a new and even larger audience, and it became a cultural phenomenon. And conventions started popping up, bringing fans together. So, do you think that the show's enduring success can be attributed to its ability to resonate with audiences across different generations?
Yeah, because I think beyond we've moved into a technology age, and so it's just synonymous with technology advancement. So, yeah, I think that ties in. Now, should we ever, as a society or culture, burn ourselves, on technology, or there's an EMP, or then we won't be watching anything anyway. But
Right.
but I do think that we're in an age of technology, the likes of which, and innovation, the likes of which we've never seen. The advancements happening so fast that it crosses generation, because that's where you look at it.
In my head, I just had a picture of like we've moved beyond our society into a world where there's no technology, there's no internet, and it's just little like city states around the world, and the only entertainment you have is like storytellers who tell the stories that have been passed down for generations of a starship called Enterprise and James Kirk, the captain who went in search of the stars to find places that no one had ever been and meet new civilizations. Like, can you pass that
The
down
the, the
orally?
we're one of those, because of the Prime Directive, we would not be visited.
Right, right. Oh, they've already heard of us. Get us out of here, Bones. Oh wait, Bones isn't flying. Sulu,
No, Sulu,
get us out of here.
Captain,
Warp 9.
Captain. He had the coolest voice, because he was always like, Captain, you know, I'm going forward. Yes, sir, Captain.
Why?
Oh my.
Um. So as we wrap up this journey through, no, 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 no. I don't want to do that yet. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself on the schedule here. We talked about going across different generations. Have you shared Star Trek with your kids at this point? Are they interested in watching Star Trek at all?
They have zero interest in Star Trek. They
Oh,
find
that's a
it to
shame.
be boring. And I've watched all of them. I mean, I've watched everything. I mean, except I'm still watching Lower Decks. Don't look at me like I've failed as a father.
No, 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 I'm not. I'm not. I'm not. I'm not. I'm. It's calling it
But
boring. It's just like
the problem is today, like, there's so much flash. We were talking about this last night here, but there's so much flash, instant gratification of flipping up. The idea of sinking your teeth into a good book, or just getting into letting a slow burn, or even having some sort of plot, I think is lost a little on the youth. And maybe it wasn't so lost on the youth because it wasn't the technology that now wasn't around back then. But when we were kids, even so, I mean, we didn't have like flip phones, cell phones, and things like that to distract us. The idea of once a week, like when Next Generation was coming on, you waited for it. You waited for it to come, and in the build for what's going to happen next. The character development's happening subtly and not while you're
Mhm.
binging. So, it's harder these days to have something that's not like big bang flashy in your face constantly with spark moments to keep your attention to a generation that has a very low attention span.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't even have a term for screen time back when we were kids. It was just, are y'all watching TV too much? Maybe go outside. All right.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, but hopefully as they get older, I mean, and it depends. Some of the shows these days that are coming out, and then they're far more adult driven. But Picard, although driven by nostalgia, and was a great show in my opinion. But the Strange New Worlds, and I'm sure we'll cover this stuff on another time. But just talking about why it's not versus say a show like that, I think is fantastic. And it's different. It's not appealing to the young people really. I don't think.
Youth is wasted on the young.
True.
I will say too, as far as the whole different generation thing, I don't have kids of my own to pass on Star Trek too, but I definitely it was definitely something that I did with my dad.
Yeah.
Like for as long as he was with us, he and I went and saw every Star Trek movie in the theater together.
Yeah.
Um, well, from Star Trek 4 on, and put it that way, because I was probably too young. I mean, Star Trek 2 came out when I was 2 years old, so that would have been way too young to see an earwig go into somebody's ear and, you know, face
Maybe
con
that's my
down. But
problem is I need to have my son watch Wrath of Khan because I haven't ever tried to do that. And he will at times, even with Star Wars, say, I'd like to watch one of the original Star Wars. You know what I mean? And so maybe if I just start him there instead of saying, hey, let's start with Next Generation or let's start with one of these shows, if I just throw him right into an earwig situation, that could be awesome.
introduce it to him the way that it was introduced to you.
Yeah. Which was
Um,
Khan. Khan
yeah,
Khan was Khan was. I
that's
remember
that was the first
when
one I saw. Like I think it
okay,
was
yeah.
gosh, I don't know how old I was, but dad had uh Star Trek 2 and Star Trek 3 recorded on the same VHS tape. I
Yeah.
think he'd gotten it off of HBO or something at one point. And yeah, so he introduced me to Star Trek the movies, and he tried to get me to watch the TV show when I was a kid. Like he'd get me to watch like reruns when they would come on in syndication. And I'm like, this is so cheesy. I don't want to watch this
Yeah.
because I mean, I will admit the special effects that they
They're
used.
pretty rough.
Yeah, yeah. Look, going back at that, it's rough, but uh especially as at that age when they were at that point introducing us to the next generation, and I'm seeing the newer, this is
Yeah.
what a planet looks like now instead of this blob that they put on the screen in the original show. Um but uh but yeah, I will say that generationally, that is something that just got passed down. Dad was a Trekkie for sure.
Yeah.
um like it didn't matter what series it was. Like he would keep his TV, like when he was officially retired, and he'd be at home all day. He'd leave his TV on Spike TV, and they would have 2 episodes of Next Generation, 2 episodes of Deep Space Nine, 2 episodes of Voyager, and then 2 episodes of Enterprise. And
Wow. Well, hey,
dude,
let me ask you this. Do you think that like this Strange New Worlds could lead to like an actual revamp of the original series with the characters that are on there?
gosh, I don't know. I think they've got a long way to go with this crew. I think they can stretch this out a little bit longer. I think because I think that this is still um it's less than 10 years away from when Kirk takes over as captain.
But
But
this guy who plays Spock is like incredible.
oh yeah, he's spot on. He does such a
Oh my
good
God.
job.
and I love Uhura. I love and the James Kirk is growing on me. You know, they really this last season helped that. You know, but I wonder about the revamp kind of stuff that people will try. So I don't know. Could you imagine there being like a Star Trek show that was the original crew? Because you really, if you think about it, those 3 seasons that were back in the 60s, really people don't really watch it as much unless you were back then. You know, I mean, you'll watch it, you'll binge it for nostalgia just to have continuity if you're our age. But like our parents would watch it, but they're not going to binge it and stuff. People aren't really seeing what it was like to be the Star Trek crew in a series. I mean, they saw Chris Pine do it, but that doesn't really, I mean, his movies, but to see a series of watching the James T. Kirk crew roll, that's not really that. I feel like that could catch some interest.
It is interesting to think about, and I have thought about that with Strange New Worlds. You know, they are. It seems like they're introducing more and more characters from the original series because not spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen season 2 of Strange New Worlds, but in the season finale they introduced Scotty to us,
Right,
a new
right.
version of Scotty. So I wonder if he's going to go ahead and take over as, uh, if he's not coming in as chief engineer in season 3, if he's just going to transfer onto the Enterprise, working under Carol Kane's character,
Yeah,
and learning the ropes, and then becoming the miracle worker that he becomes, as we know him in
yeah.
the original series.
Right.
Yeah, it's great. I hope we get to see more. I really do. So I like Ortega at the helm,
Me too.
but it would be interesting to see what happens if they bring in Sulu. And you know, slowly, one by one, here comes the original crew, and then you know the stuff with Pike happens. He gets taken off of the ship. He's no longer able to serve as captain, and here comes Kirk. And so, what do you do? Do you continue Strange New Worlds, or do you
Shift.
shoot that off into another series that is the 5 year journey that the Enterprise went on under Kirk's command?
Right.
Um, it's a lot to think about, but I trust what they're doing. I think they're doing a great job with that show in particular. All right, so we are getting ready to wrap this up on the original series. Landon, do you have any other final thoughts on the enduring legacy of Star Trek?
No, just love it. Love it. And maybe eventually my kids will love it too. If I force them. Con! Con!
All right, with that, folks, we've reached the end of another episode of the Show. We will be back later this week with part 2 of our Star Trek discussion. We're going to get into the nitty gritty of some of the classic episodes that have stood the test of time. So if you like what you've seen and heard, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to stay updated on all our geeky discussions. Until next time, have a great whatever it is, wherever you are.